Of course, continue with these damning reports coming out of Parliament's inquiry into the escape of Thabo Bester from the Mangaung Correctional Central just last year.
Yeah, it was quite something to watch. Security company G4S appearing before the Justice and Correctional Services Portfolio Committee. MPs have heard about an unauthorized vehicle that was somehow able to get into the prison just days before Bester is understood to have escaped.
Now, the company running operations at the prison only found out about this in February of last year. So let's speak now to eNCA Senior Reporter Aviwe Mtila, who is attending these proceedings and perhaps even reflecting on one occurred at the Portfolio Committee sitting. And Aviwe, good morning to you, colleague. I mean, take us back to the beginning of, the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Service. I mean, I'm sure we would agree that in the beginning, a bit of a frustrating process because G4S had initially claimed that they were waiting for summons before they could actually present any of their findings. Already there we knew that we're going to be dealing with a company that wasn't just going to be letting information out that easily.
Certainly, Tumela, a lot coming out, of course, from that Justice Committee briefing, of course, that looked at the circumstances around the escape of Thabo Bester. Even just after that, I spoke to the Police Commissioner, General Fani Masimula, just after 6 o'clock, of course, when it wrapped up. And he also gave us more information on the latest. We do know, of course, Nandi Magudumana, as well as Thabo Bester, are now in the country arrested. But we do know there are 2 more arrests, that of the Integritin employee, that is the IT solutions company that provided technical assistance to Mangaung Correctional Central. We do understand that one of the employees then, after the story broke that, in fact, this was not suicide, it is an escape from jail. They conducted their own investigations internally, and one of the employees that was on duty that evening was taken in for a polygraph test on the 31st of March. He failed that polygraph test that asked if he assisted Thabo Bester in any way. It came out negative, and he then thereafter handed himself over to the police. He is now in police custody. We do understand set to appear, I understand, on Thursday. But also, not only him, we do understand, according to the General Fani Masimula, the police commissioner, that also a bodyguard of Nandi Magudumana was found with the Porsche that's believed to be Nandi. So he's also arrested, making then addition to those that have been arrested. But a lot came out, essentially, to Melo, if you look at the information and the evidence that was presented there by G4S and also the cross-questioning. Of course, it dates back to how Thabo Bester did that elaborate escape. It's now, fitting in the puzzles into how this all happened. We do know that he made that application back on the 15th of April, applying to be moved to a single cell. This reasoning, we understand, was that he was getting intimidation, was being intimidated by one of the gangs inside prison, 26 gang to be more specific, and he didn't pay the protection fee, so he asked then the officials of the correctional services to move him to a single cell. We do know a lot has happened, but he was eventually moved on the 30th of April to a specific cell, cell 35, that I'll delve in to a bit later on. But there are a lot of odd occurrences that will actually paint the picture that this was all planned out to the T. For example, we do know that the CCTV footage in that specific area where Thabo Bester was in was not working for at least 8 hours. That's from 1938 on 2nd May to at least 4 a.m. on the 3rd of May. All of those hours where this elaborate escape was happening was undocumented in terms of that CCTV footage. Also, the timing around the fire, as G4S put it out there, that the fire that happened at around 4 o'clock. That was disputed by parliamentarians that were actually there last week at the Mangaung Correctional Central doing a site visit. They say that the information that they got on the ground is that the fire broke out at 2:30 a.m. on the 3rd of May, and in fact it was reported at around 2:59, something that caused somewhat of a confusion and controversy in that cross-questioning that I wanted to take a listen to, as the parliamentarians posed hard-hitted questions to the G4S management. Let's take a listen to that.
There was 2 reports that night. A report at 3 o'clock that reported there was a fire. It was investigated by the supervisor, Senoi. It formed part of the reason why he was suspended and found guilty and dismissed, as he did not investigate that properly. The reason why the 4 o'clock is this is when the official incident happened. what led to the investigation. So that's why there's 4 o'clock on the document. There was an incident of 3 o'clock, I confirm that, and it's in the same time that the 2 officials that we referred to, or 2 persons, was viewed on the camera for a few seconds on the video footage that was shown to the committee.
Why are you telling us that 2:30, 2:59 the fire broke? It was then reported at 4 o'clock. Why are you giving us 4 o'clock at the fire broke?
Because that's the official time that the fire broke, Honourable Member, that
But that
led
is
to the
not.
incident.
That is not. The CCTV footage says 2:59 it was reported from your controller room. 2:30 fire broke. You are saying here 4 o'clock fire broke. Why are you not saying to us that at 4 o'clock in terms of your documentation and your administrational processes, that's when it was recorded? You are confirming that 3 o'clock indeed it broke, but you are writing to us here in black and white that it's 4 o'clock.
Honourable Member, I can only I'm sorry that 3 o'clock is not included in the document. It was, however, included in our investigation. It was looked at, and as I've indicated, that gave the reasons why we acted against the employees.
And Aviwe, let's be very honest. You were watching it, obviously, because you were there live for us. We were watching it live here on eNCA. And if I'm very honest, T, it only got worse from there. It was actually quite painful to watch after a while. And the one that stood out for me, and we're about to talk about this, 3 things. Cell 35, a blind spot, and the cameras. This was also an astonishing moment to witness as well, wasn't it?
What we just saw now was sort of like a warm-up, Gareth, as they were just getting started there. They went into more details, and as you mentioned, that crucial cell 35. It's cell 35, one of the 70 single cells in the Mangaung Correctional Facility. In fact, it's the one that Thabo Bester requested to be moved to and was moved to. It's the significance about this particular cell that is now, of course, famous is that it has 2 things that would make an escape easier. One, it's next to the emergency exit, so it'd be easy to maneuver outside from cell 35 to that emergency exit if you are planning this elaborate escape. The other, of course, is that the CCTV footage is way far away from it, so you can only see poorly what is happening around the particular cell. Never mind that for 8 hours the CCTV footage in that specific area wasn't working, which we can't actually pinpoint what happened because the CCTV footage wasn't there. In fact, let's take a listen then, Gareth, to the explanation of this particular cell 35, which you remember he said he moved there because he was getting intimidated by the 26 gang. Let's take a listen.
What did you do to those who are alleged to be the 26 gang inside the prison cell? Did you do anything?
Honourable Member, according to my knowledge...
Those who threatened Thabo Bester, did you do anything with them?
At this moment, I don't have that information.
You did nothing. The last issue, Chair, I want to cover is the last issue, and I'm sure I'm still fine in terms of time. You take Mr. Bester to cell 35. Firstly, do you agree that cell 35 is a blind spot from cameras? Do you agree?
It's not a blind spot, Honourable Member, but it's poorly seen on TV because the camera is a little bit far from that point, but you can see...
What is a blind spot? How do you define a blind spot?
A blind
in
spot
your own understanding?
A blind spot is where you can see nothing, sir.
Okay. Do you agree that cell 35 is next to an emergency exit? Do you agree?
Agree.
Aviwe, we're listening into the answers, obviously coming, from a G4S, and I can understand why it went downhill from there. But also, I want to touch on, a vehicle that I understand actually was quite important and identify how much of a role it played, an unauthorized vehicle entering that facility just mere days before the escape.
Yes, certainly, Tubelo. This is days before Thabo Bester made this elaborate escape. There's an unauthorized vehicle that made its way inside the Mangaung Correctional Facility and then minutes later left. It's believed to be carrying a box of a TV stand. But of course, any of those parliamentarians that were inside there will tell you that's the car and the contents that were inside the box. It was the car that was delivering the corpse that later on went to be Thabo Bester. Because we do understand, of course, according to the autopsy that was released just a day later by the forensics, that the person that was found inside the cell was already dead by the time that he was there, and also that it's not Thabo Bester, given the height and the mass. It's way completely different from Thabo Bester. So that unauthorized vehicle is suggested to be the one that in fact accompanied this dead person inside, and 7 suspensions have since happened at G4S employees that are now recently suspended after they had a whiff of this information on the 28th of February this year. Remember, already 3 of them were suspended last year already. In fact, went on to be fired. One is the one that's already arrested, Sinawa Matswara. We do understand the supervisor on the night that couldn't even explain his movements around there or what he was actually telling people to do, some of the guards to do there. Unexplainable, some of what we heard, of course, there yesterday. But let's take a look at this unauthorized vehicle that led to the 7 suspensions at G4S.
The incident book, where it was recorded that the vehicle had entered and 8 minutes later had left the facility, suggests nothing untoward with that entry. So by any independent party looking at that log, they would not have detected anything untoward as far as that vehicle's entry and exit is concerned.
So your system is deficient, doesn't pick up, there's no checks and balances, doesn't pick up this kind of thing. Can go undetected for a year. There could have been many more such entries and exits. Who would know? So clearly your system is not foolproof. Your staff didn't report it for some odd reason. How many people are on duty at the gate? 1.
I'll ask my colleagues to, I don't know what that answer is.
There was one on duty, Honourable Member, yes, correct.
And how did the vehicle get in without authorization?
The process will still reveal it, but currently I can confirm that we've got 7 people that's suspended pending this investigation.
Just worth reminding viewers as well, Aviwe, that this is going to be continuing today. That was just yesterday as well. And one of the big questions has to have been from yesterday, and this was asked time and time again. It was certainly inferred in the beginning, and then it was just asked right out. Was there any inside help?
Certainly seeming the case. I mean, already G4S employee behind bars now, now added to this Integrin employee that, of course, is the IT company that was contracted to G4S in terms of the tech equipment. It actually reminds me of the back and forth and that cross-questioning. Dennis Baitenbach coming strong to that IT company, especially around the involvement of this particular gentleman. That, of course, there's camera footage showing him going inside that tech room just before, you know, the CCTV footage itself didn't work. That's at 19:38 on the 2nd of May. He went in there. Glenn is asking, so what was he doing there? He goes in, the equipment doesn't work all of a sudden, and then only when it's fixed, some 8 hours later at 4:11 in the morning, then all of a sudden it works. They needed to answer why that was so. Of course, we do know now that particular employee was put on a polygraph test on the 31st of March, which he failed. He then handed himself over to the police. But we do know a number of factors already, Gareth. For example, in the evidence that came out there from G4S, it suggested that that eagerly awaited DNA test that actually looked at to the deceased in the cell and who he was came back negative, suggesting on the 31st of July already last year that the person that was in the cell was not Thabo Bester, definitely. Some of what I asked Fani Masimula, the general, and he suggested that they were still continuing with the investigations, but clearly it's something that they could have wrapped up sooner rather than telling us only in March that they've now completed the investigation. So some of what came out yesterday there, and you see that the police had the knowledge, Gareth, long ago of the facts around this. Service that it wasn't Thabo Bester, even though they still needed to investigate who that dead person is. We do know now he's still in the state morgue, given that his identity still hasn't been clarified. But they certainly knew that it wasn't Thabo Bester. It had to take ground up to actually break the story. And now we're getting those suggestions and them coming out saying that it wasn't Thabo Bester. We do know, of course, according to the Correctional Services Act, they're supposed to have done an inquest with all these investigations from G4S, from the Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Services, also from the Pathology Services, Correctional Services. They all were supposed to conduct investigations and actually check in with one another so that they can have conclusive findings and come out suggesting that this is not Thabo Bester and who the person is, and that body handed then to the correct family. But we continue today, Gareth, at 9 o'clock. That's when Parliamentary, the Portfolio Committee on Justice, of course, will hear the testimonies of SAPS, will hear the testimony of the Judicial Inspectorate of Correctional Services, as well as the Department of Correctional Services themselves, is what we expect today from 9 o'clock.